Hello, this is David Brim, and I'm the founder of Orlando Entrepreneurs. We are the hub for Orlando entrepreneurship, and our mission is to connect, cultivate, and celebrate our local entrepreneurs. We bring together our local entrepreneurial ecosystem to help impact our entrepreneurs, their companies, and our local economy. Learn more at orlandoentrepreneurs.org. Now over to Josh Wilson to get forward with our show.
Good day, everyone, and welcome to the Orlando Entrepreneur Show. My name is Josh, and I'm traveling around Orlando, having conversations with CEOs and founders and people who are making a difference here in Orlando through their business and with their business. So in today's episode, I want to have a conversation with Mr. Waymon Armstrong, the CEO and president of a company called ECS. So, Waymon, welcome to the Orlando Entrepreneur Show.
Hey, Josh, thanks for having me, and I appreciate what you and David are doing to recognize and bring forward the entrepreneurial adventure for the Central Florida community. So great, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm sitting in this really high-tech building. I'm sitting in a simulation room where I see all sorts of cool stuff going for virtual reality, and I'm here in your headquarters, right?
You are, absolutely.
Awesome. So why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do here?
So I'm Waymon Armstrong, and ECS stands for Engineering Computer Simulations. It was 21 years ago this past May that started ECS, and like any business, there's a story behind it, and for us there's quite a few stories along the way to get to where we are, but we are primarily a advanced learning technology company. Our primary client is the Department of Defense. Josh, you and the listeners can sleep good at night knowing what great stewards you are of your tax dollars, but no one's got more R&D in advanced learning technologies, video games, virtual worlds, assessment tools, and hopefully right now we're doing some augmented reality virtual than ECS has here locally.
So you mentioned video games and defense and simulation and defense, and how did these all played together?
Well, I'll tell you, a lot of people don't realize that Orlando is known, well, I like to say, it's known as Simulation Swamp. Out here near UCF, the Army, Navy, and Marines headquarters for modeling, simulation, or training are based here. About $5 billion is procured locally, and you've got nearly a couple hundred firms, from smaller firms like ourselves to the industry bellwethers that you'd recognize, like Lockheed Martin and Northrop and Boeing, who are here. All our job is to focus and support, and proud to serve the warfighter. But in that realm of modeling simulation, about 20 years ago, they looked as far as on what those demographics are for the young men and women who serve our country, and they decided, hey, video games become quite popular. We need to look at getting into those, and we were the first firm to win a contract. This is right before 9/11 to build a video game for the Army for training, and from that we've grown our business, and we've also diversified at that same time.
Sure. So what did that first game look like? Because you won a contract with the Army for a video game.
That's right. Well, first of all, I would tell you this, that the budget that, while our government is large and the amount of money we spend to train the warfighter is tremendous, at that time, and still, the video game budget we got to build is minuscule compared to what they use on the current titles out there. You can go down the line for Halo or anything else. So, and the main focus is, while you buy a video game to play, it's entertainment. What we're looking here is education, it's training. And so there's a different mission going through that. And you've heard people ever use that word, it's edutainment. No, it's not edutainment. We're looking, because what we do can have life and death consequences. It's education. And so we have to focus on what's important to learn first, and the entertainment piece comes secondary.
Got it. So I'm trying to take it back to 1997 when I was playing video games with my friends and my little brother. GoldenEye, I think, Nintendo 64, and I was playing GoldenEye, and that's what we were playing, running around. What was your video game like, and how did it benefit the soldiers of the United States Army?
So, it's a funny story. We went ahead and we submitted, first of all, it is so, if you saw it, our kids know, you're younger than me, recognize it on how Neanderthal it seems compared with current technology. Our first focus, we started looking at this is pre 9/11, so this is in 2001. How can we go ahead and use a video game for training? It was primarily focused that had come out of the book as far as on Black Hawk Down that was done before that, and how we can go ahead and stack a room. And we looked at, and then 9/11 came through, and they said, all right, what are we going to go ahead and look at now? And during that time, the country, if you remember, was a different time. Going back, people, scared to death to fly and everything else. Well, we had the idea, let's get some press, that we did a mod. If you remember, Counter-Strike was a game, first-person shooter. It was a great mod community. We did a mod of a sniper at Orlando International Airport, and the airport was tough to get into, and we counted ceiling tiles, we took some pictures, and built a mod as a sniper, and we put it out to show as far as the community, and we got some press on the television. Obviously, they didn't like it as far as at the airport, because here we are building that, but just showing here's the power of that. What happened is they changed our first from a team, going through and going into a room to security, a runner at an airport. So we did a simulation of somebody broke airport security, how to respond to that. That was the first one. The second one came out is a hazmat application, because it's not like you're going to go ahead and do a live exercise of if you were going to OIA to fly out, you see some guys walked in carrying hazmat gear, it's not going to give you a warm and fuzzy. Well, if we did a scenario, simulated what's involved and how you respond to that. So I will call that first one on the runner through there, that was a proof of concept. The first actual game was for doing hazmat training.
Nice. So let's go back before you started this company.
Right.
Like, what were you doing previous to this?
Well, I was a partner in a firm that specialized in crisis and project management, and so I was fortunate enough to respond and work from Hurricane Hugo and Andrew, where corporations, insurance would contract with us to manage their response. Northridge earthquake, one of the largest I worked on I was a contractor over in Kuwait during Desert Storm, and supported Cigna Insurance, who was doing the claim for Kuwait National Petroleum Company that we would submit to the UN for war reparations. So I had a chance to work with our military before in some different roles in some of the places I was at.
Okay. So coming out of that, how did you have this idea to create a simulation company, a video game company?
Well, Josh, as you know, the best laid plans going through there. In 1990, the firm I was with previous, we were looking at technology. It was the peace transition that was coming back. The wall had fallen. Hey, we've got all this technology. What can be used for it? And there was a company at the time, Silicon Graphics. I don't know if you remember SGI. They had these refrigerator-sized simulators. And I said, hey, there's a need going out to be using this going forward, and liking video games. And the firm I was with wasn't interested in doing it. So I said, let me go out on my own. So in 1997, I went out on my own. We were doing a little work with what was then Martin Marietta became Lockheed Martin, and I felt there was a need on doing the 3D art that comes with a simulation, because the graphics were horrible. And I used the analogy, we were like at your home, your paint contractor. What's the first thing you see? Well, how's it look? But by the time you look at that, all the budget's gone, all the schedule's gone, and you've got to get it done. And if you thought, hey, we're going to build this great visual database, which we've done, Baghdad, anything going down the line and look, and now you're saying, hey, just get it done, we've got to deliver it. And I realized there's really not a sustainable model going back in there. So what can go ahead and differentiate? And we said, video games. And Columbine had happened, and they blamed it on the video games. They said, listen, there's some real positive things that can be done, so let's look at using video games for training. So we looked to go through, and this was going in the late 90s into the dot-com era, and everybody was getting money. We said, let's build a company to go ahead and do that, and do video games to help school resource officers.
Yeah.
And while people loved our business plan, that dot-com era went into the dot-bomb era, And all of our work dried up. And as I was trying to raise money, and people were telling me, it's going in the summer of 2001, hey, you're going to be oversubscribed, you're going to raise it. Well, meanwhile, I don't have the cash coming in, and to keep my team going, I'm using credit cards, and I'm not getting paid to keep us going. And then finally, boom, we don't break escrow and get it. And I can remember, and this is, this would be August of 2001. We're getting ready. The only person who sees the value is the Department of Defense, the Army Force, but we've got a contract. We haven't started work for it. And I'm hitting 40 years old. I'm $1 million in debt. I got $322,000 credit card with 22 credit cards I owe on the lease and everything else. And my wife is getting ready to have our first child, and thinking, man, have I failed. and the sad thing was, for me, really was, it's one thing I said, you failed. I had half a dozen people who believed in me, who worked for me, who had gone without pay for a certain period of time, that I owed money, and that they had families or significant others, and they weren't happy with me. And I thought, okay, it's one thing for me to fail, it's another, the response I'm going to take and affect others. And I just felt I had hit rock bottom.
Yeah. So not to bring you back to that, but I think that this is valuable for myself and then for our listeners, because I've gone through situations of incredible failure, incredible pressure. The world's looking at you. You owe money to friends and family, and to keep lights on. You have a baby on its way, right? Like, what was going through your head, man? Like, what were you thinking about?
Well, I've got to tell you, if you see, I've got my journal here. Well, first of all, I've got an incredibly supportive wife who'd believe with me and supported going through there. But I just felt, hey, I mean, how am I ever going to get out of this?
Yeah.
It brought me to my knees. My faith increased. Also, during that time, on who some of the friends were, and I was prepared that I might not come out of this, that I might, my brother used to call me up and joke, hey, will you biggie size your drink and fries with that? We would be laughing, what are you going to do as far as with coming back? But as a friend told me, he goes, remember, this doesn't define who you are. And that helped for me to understand that I wasn't the only one going through. Of course, I liked the friend who told me that had venture capital money. It wasn't all his, and the debt going through there. But the part is that hey, I'm going to get out of this. And basically, I went and I talked to a bankruptcy attorney, and he said, you can declare bankruptcy and come and go. And let go. I said, listen, I created the mess. I don't want to do that. I go, have you ever had anybody who's come back from this? He goes, I've had only one person who was in worse shape than you come back. I said, all right, that's my role model. That's what I'm going to aspire to do. Yeah. And slowly over time, we started getting work. And we, and I started, being creative in how we use that, and also with some help, from my wife, and we were blessed. And it took us a while to start getting back, but I didn't get in that mess overnight. I didn't get out of it overnight.
Yeah. From that situation, I believe that, just like steel is forged in fire, right? So we're typically forged under incredible pressure, stress. I mean, that's how diamonds are made too, right? Stress, pressure, heat. What do you think was the most valuable thing that you learned during that time?
Well, Josh, I agree with you. I was in the crucible. I would tell you on that. And the issue was, is that crucible where sometimes I can't go to for a long time. It took me 8 years to get out of debt and pay everybody back. It wasn't something where you're saying, okay, I got debt hanging over me. I've still got to go ahead and support myself and work my people and slowly work this debt. I tell you, it gave me a couple things on that. One is that on having a loose handle of things of this world, it wasn't about the stuff. I love the work I do. I'll tell you a story about this. So we got our first contract I mentioned for me that we won earlier before the Department of Defense, was before 9/11. We didn't start it till right after that in the fall of 2001. My wife had our first child. And so we had a deal. My wife's a speech therapist, and I said, that she was going to stay home for a few months and went with the baby. And I had to go back to Frances, and I said, hey, honey, we had this great deal that, you were going to go ahead and not work, and I was going to support us. But, I've got a job I love. Unfortunately, I wasn't getting paid, and I hadn't gotten paid by the time it was all done and said, before this and after. So I went 38 months, 3 years without getting paid. I said, I have a job I love, I'm not getting paid. I need you to go back, to work to help support us.
How did that go?
Well, Josh, my being married to the incredible woman that I am, she agreed. But what she didn't do is she didn't go out and look for a job. She said, sure, I'll do that. And then she didn't do anything. She stayed home with our oldest. Yeah. So I went out and I found her a job. Oh, and, so she could get back to work. It was a great job for her because of my travel. Yeah. And she went back to work to support us as I started to look at rebuilding the company. And, I wouldn't, be here without her and her support on that. And we started growing. And as we grew in that time, I'm still getting pounded by creditors. I mean, and you shared with your story, there's nothing like credit card companies, and I don't want to throw anyone under the bus, but one in particular was just the biggest pain, and just, I don't want to say harassment, they can't, they don't do that anymore. And I remember coming home from working hard, and my wife's on the phone, and the baby's screaming in the background, and my wife's yelling, my husband's not a sleazeball, if he said he's going to pay, he's going to pay. I'm like, wow. Yeah. This is tough. And at that time, I went to my bankruptcy attorney, who I said I wasn't going to do it, and I said, I'm going to say I'm going to get the creditors off. So at the time, the bankruptcy laws changed. If I went and said, please talk to my bankruptcy attorney. Oh, don't declare bankruptcy. Well, I don't want to, but talk to him. Yeah. And so they went to him, and it gave me the time to focus at both work and at home on what I knew that did business. Now that didn't mean they didn't stop serving me. I can remember right after our baby was born, my in-laws were up visiting me, and we're having dinner, my wife and I and the baby, and there's a knock, and there's a deputy sheriff here. Here's from one of your credit card companies. Thank you. Yeah. All right, let's try to jump back in. And I know my in-laws had some questions about who their oldest daughter had married, but they didn't say anything. I could see by the look on it, and what that entrepreneurial venture is like, not just for you, but for your family as well. Yeah.
God bless the partners of entrepreneurs, right?
Oh.
Gosh, they deserve medals.
Well, and I think the same thing for the men and women who work with us. If you walk out, to any airport, half the people there either own their own business or work for a small business. Mm-hmm. And the, trials and tribulations, what we go in the fight, that battle is something that even in small businesses, they understand and share. And I think a lot of people, it's very easy to forget that. And things that happen outside of our control, and we try to do the best we can with that. So
yeah, now, I've been through situations. I've lost cars. I've been funded by Visa. I know the credit card collectors' phone numbers by heart.
Well, and it's interesting as you get to know some of these people. I had one in particular who just hounded me. And just thought I was the most irresponsible person in the world, and I didn't foresee it obviously coming, and I did not look forward to talking. The worst thing you can do is avoid them. And I remember talking to her, one night she called, and it was in the office, and I said, I've had it. You win. What do you mean you win? I said, I can't deal with this anymore. I'm going to go ahead and you talk about it. I'm going to declare bankruptcy. No, wait a minute. It's not that bad. Hey. Hanging. I mean, it was amazing how fast that.
Now they're a motivational coach, right?
That's right. And so there were some really, I know there's some people who were really not very kind. I'm being as political as I correct for the audience here. But there's some people who really, hey, this happens. Do what you can. Yeah. And as I started getting back in, those are the ones you looked at. All right, who can I pay first as you start to rebuild? And it took a long time to knock them all off.
So 8 years, you started winning contract. You got some self-confidence back, right?
Yes.
Right. You got back up on your feet. You started to build and grow and to get better at providing service for other people, but getting bigger contracts. As you started to come out of the hole and starting to pay people off, building that confidence again, like what changed in you?
Well, first of all, I realized when you start a company, you go on this idea that you can be a little naive and you're going to change the world. And, you saw what happened to .com. We're going to become paper millionaires and a VC is going to come. And then you realize it doesn't happen the way you thought. Yeah. You realize that there's men and women who trust and believed in you, and you've let them down. Not by intentionally, but it happened, and they look for you for responsibility. So, what I try to do is when we hire, at that time was to hire people, I owed some folks some money. And so when we won that first contract back in 2001, I worked at starting to hire them back. I couldn't pay them back what I owed them yet. Because I owed them several months on, but to work. And we got out of the office space we're in. I was able to get us some sublease space with AT&T, their government group down here. I knew the guy who ran. There was a friend of mine. He believed in me, gave me a free rent for a few months, gave us a discount to come in. He said, "You guys are doing some cool technology." And I had to tell my team, "Hey, I know some of you are still mad at me. I know you owe some money. Listen, we can't fight in public. If you want to say what you want, let's just do it behind closed doors. Let's do it. Let's look good for everybody else here as we start working that." So started getting back as far as some work, and Grow was able to hire that whole team back. They were, some money and started to try to, it took a few years, to pay them all back. Some people didn't need as much as others, but to go through, I didn't want that. And so, that helped. But, you mentioned on the confidence piece, Josh, you as an entrepreneur, you have this balance of humility where we know there's so many things outside of our control. You want to call it luck, fate, divine intervention, things that happen, both good and bad, that we can't foresee. But you also have this confidence that you believe the business and what you're doing is right, that you were called for this, that your team to make a difference in the world, and you have this balance. So, you never want to lose that confidence. It gets damaged and you get time down, but our job as leaders, I got to go back and absorb that anxiety. I mean, behind closed doors, I can crawl up in the fetal position underneath the desk, but when that door is open and I'm, dealing from my office, hey man, things are going to be great and we're going to go forward there. So there's that balance. And we started growing because you never know what's going to happen again. And I'll give you an example as far as on that. So we won this first contract in the fall of 2001, got a little bit more work that came in. Of course, banking was different, was electronic. I want to ever say I kited checks, but I could take from one check, deposit in here, and make payments on the other for the float to keep us going as we got going through that time. And our first contract, we're doing very well, and we're getting another one, but I don't have the money to expand. And so I'm looking, what are my options? And it hits me, and I go to my wife Frances, and I tell her, I said, "Honey, I am so sorry for blowing all of our savings, borrowing against the 401k, putting a second mortgage on the house. But let me tell you the good news, babe. The good news is, it's all in my name. That's right. You can apply for credit, and we can rebuild." Yeah. And she did. And with her sterling credit, we were able to go ahead and get a credit line and start going back and rebuilding. Now, what was the difference? You said from that first time when I want to say I crashed and burned everybody going, I came back later on is I realized, hey, there's no second chance. My credit's toast. My wife is, and before, as I'm doing my business plan, and it was that freewheeling time, I like to believe I use my resources as effectively as possible. I really became as effective as we could on what resources we had and how we managed that to go forward. But there's still things, outside, your control. So we did this first project, and I went to our government client who we still work with, and I said to him, I said, "Hey, Bill, we did, I believe, a great job for you on this first project coming down. What do you think?" I've got some great responses. He said, "Absolutely." I said, "I'd like to go ahead and take it to the next level." He says, "Listen, I agree with you." I go, "I think we need to triple the budget." And he goes, "Waymon, I could see, and let me show you why we need that budget." And Bill goes, "Waymon, I agree with you, but you've only got the third that I've got going in for next year. You need to find the other 2/3. And I said, well, is there anybody you recommended and to talk to? And that's one of the things I've learned. Whenever I get told no by somebody, okay, I understand. Well, if you don't, who do you think I should talk to? And so he recommended me to a woman who was a PhD and ran a local laboratory for the Department of Defense. And I had met her once before. I went up and I briefed her and showed her what I'm doing. She goes, hey, I love what you're doing. I see the value. Count me in, for the other third. And I said, well, that's great. Now she goes, here's the conditions. My money expires. It's got to be committed by this is like June. It's going to be committed by September, and I've got to have an end user that's going to agree to this because I match the money to know that he wants it. I'm doing it for him. I said, okay, great. Is there anybody you recommended? And he said, this major in the National Guard Bureau headquarters is perfect for this. And she gives me his name. So June comes along. I email and I call. No response. June goes by. July goes by. August goes by. Now our contract ends in September. And if I don't have this in place in September, I'm out of business. All the work, all that money, and I'm hanging on what's going on. So I research and I find a picture of what the major looks like, and I find out from other people, I'm networking and trying to find that he's going to be at the annual National Guard Conference in Long Beach, California, the second weekend of September. So I'm like, I'm taking my notebook out there, I'm going to find him. So I book the travel, grab my notebook, I fly out there, it's a weekend conference. Walk in to the Long Beach Convention Center on Friday afternoon, and boom, it hits me. There's 4,000 guys there in uniform with the same haircut, and I've got to find him. So, obviously, social media is all I can connect. So I'm walking the hall Friday afternoon, Friday night, nothing. You know where I might find the major? Nothing there. Saturday morning, I'm there when it opens. All day, Saturday night, working parties. You know so-and-so, have you found? No, I haven't seen him here. Sunday, last day, I'm there when it opens, and at where the coffee is, you have those like powdered sugar donuts. The great news as far as, you got the name tags on the military, you've got as far as your name also as far as across your AC Army combat uniform. I see him. I walk up to him, Major, how are you? Waymon Armstrong. I've left you a few messages. Let me show you how I can help you. Pull out my notebook, fire it up, and say, here's what we're doing, I'd like to do. He looks at me reluctantly, goes, come see me next week in D.C. We'll make something happen.
Nice.
Now,
over powdered donuts.
Over powdered donut. Now, I don't find this guy at that time. We're not having this discussion here, Josh. We're not in business. I mean, it's those type of things where you talk about, on a business, there's those moments that can go ahead, that happen, that define you or do not happen. And that was one of them that kept us in business, and we got the funding to start scaling.
Wow. What an interesting story. Now, let's go back. I want to highlight a few times where the world might have said you're crazy. All right, you're building a video game for the military.
Right.
Was the world saying that sounds kind of nuts? Right. Video games are bad, and it causes these kind of things.
Well, I would tell you, it is the younger officers understood the power of that, and just like.
But they didn't control the budget.
You hit a great point. There was a few men who were in a higher position who had the vision and understood what was needed. And so, I like to make the joke, I kiss a lot of frogs to find that princess. I got to find that princess who has a vision, who's a visionary. Oh, and by the way, has some dollars to back up that vision.
Yeah.
So that was my job at the time. But yeah, there was quite a few people who thought that, we were nuts, that, it's not going to happen. I mean, we couldn't even mention gaming because at the time, if you said gaming, they thought you were talking about Vegas or Atlantic City. You couldn't mention the video games. We would say it was a micro simulation. It was a advanced learning technology to go through there. But for those first few years, absolutely. So we heard quite a few folks. And the woman who I mentioned earlier who went to bat and said that, I remember after we got it and we became friends, she said, I could never be an entrepreneur. And she goes, why is that? And she goes, I'm not as arrogant as you are. And I said, I really don't see myself as arrogant. She goes, you are, because you believe so much in what you're doing that you don't want to hear it. That's what going through. I said, well, I guess if you put it in that way, yeah, but I like to think it's confidence that this is the way, it's going to go ahead and go.
Yeah. And here we are 21 years later. I'm seeing Inc. 5,000 awards. I'm seeing awards and plaques all over the wall. I'm seeing some of the pictures of the simulation training. You're helping with combat medics, hazmat situations, and other. What other kind of things are you working on that you're allowed to talk about?
Well, first of all, Josh, you're absolutely. We have been blessed with a lot of awards, and we go again. That's a tribute to our team, to our clients, and there's the men and women who've given us an opportunity. Yeah. We've had some great consultants during that time, as you know, our service providers there. But I'll give you an example, and I know as an EMT, I like to think that the game that defines us more than anything else is called TC3, Tactical Combat Casualty Care. We started nearly 15 years ago during this when we had Hurricane Francis in there. And it's a funny story. We got a study to say, hey, is it worthwhile to do a game to train combat medics in this platinum hour if they've been wounded? In Vietnam, that platinum hour, 24% of the men died in that platinum hour in Vietnam. And here we are at this time, this is in 2004, we're in Afghanistan and Iraq. And so as we've wrapped, Iraq up and still going to Afghanistan, that's down to 6%. Body armor, better medical based as far as that game. Well, they finally, and we have done many iterations as far as to keep that game going. It's becoming a line item now in the budget going into 19. And we funded that out of our own internal research development dollars at times to keep it going, to keep it alive, to go showing, because we believed it. And I'm the son of a combat medic who suffered from PTSD, so it's something close to me. But when I mentioned the Hurricane Francis story, we had a deliverable to meet when it hit. And if you remember, if you were I don't know if you were hit when you were up at Ocala at that time when it hit, but here at Research Park, our office went down for a week. My home went down for a week. We had deliverable that was due that week, and our client was not down here because it reports back up to DC. So we had to finish that report. So I went, I'm without power, and at that time I've got a 3-year-old and I've got an 8-month-old son. We don't need power at home. I went out, took the wife and kids, car's air conditioned, and I got an embassy suite at the airport for the gentleman who was working that project so he could go ahead and move in there and finish writing to get the deliverable. And by the way, we couldn't get the info off. He didn't have a notebook off his PC. We used my wife's breast pump adapter through the park to back up the car, to back it up, to take it off of my notebook, to bring it there. And I'll never forget walking back out. My wife's waiting in the car with our 2 kids, and she said, yeah, she goes, yeah, I've got a room. Yep, he's going to have the room to work. And what about us? Well, business comes first, babe. We got to get this deliverable going. We're going back to our place.
Yeah. How did that go?
She understood it.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things, you talk about, when you're starting a company and going through there, your vision hopefully becomes her vision, the family vision. My kids, understand that, and that reflects as far as in the culture and the men and women, that, this is who we are. And if we've got a responsibility in the deadline, we're going to go ahead and do our best to meet it.
Yeah. And how many employees do you guys have?
We currently have 95 employees.
95 employees. So the sacrifices that you made, and even your early team made, has now impacted the life of 100 people within this building, but all the other lives that you saved, taking it from that 24% down to 6%, like saving lives through simulation gaming and training.
Well, first of all, I would say yes, thank you. We've been told we've trained over 1 million combat medics to date, and when we look at those 100 men and women, 40 plus of them are here. We've got a large distributed team. And we're working right now in 18 states and 2 countries. We got a large distributed team. But the other piece we look at is those 100 men and women for ECS, with their families, it goes over when we look at who are the dependents. As far as on spouses and kids, it goes up to 300. So that's, when we look at the responsibility decisions we make, how does it affect not just, the men and women who work here, how is it going to affect their families? And so that's, I think I mentioned earlier, no one ever told me or talked about or wrote in a book on, on the art of the start or any of the stuff we all read as far as on that, hey, here's how many people you're responsible for, and here are the ramifications of you making the right decisions or not.
Yeah, man. So through your journey, you've had a lot of really challenging times, and you and your family, because entrepreneurship is a team sport, so it impacts those really close to you. What are some really strong piece of advice for those men and women out there who are looking to start their own business, looking because they have this confidence that their idea is going to change the world, save lives, help make a difference?
First and foremost, if you're married or have a significant other, I think it's crucial that they're on board.
Yeah.
The rate of divorce among entrepreneurs is incredibly high. The toll it takes in having your spouse, significant other on board is first and foremost number one. Second, I would tell you, if you can do it while you're doing another job, if you can work it where you keep that revenue coming in to offset while you see if it's going to go ahead and work is tremendous. Last, I would look as this is, one of the biggest mistakes I made is when I saw it going south on me in 01, I kept my men and women, I paid them when there wasn't enough really to justify them. And I should have let them go. They became friends to me, and I eventually paid every one of them off. But the lost opportunity costs later on because of what I owed and how to take care of it, how we could have used those dollars more effectively. So, you've got to, go in with a mindset that, hey, okay, I might not win today, but all right, what's my backup plan tomorrow? And how am I going to get back? And thinking ahead. And okay, if I get back and I've got my goal is I want to bring my team with me. Well, if I don't take them with me now, all right, when can I bring them back? And for them understanding it. So I think you've really got to John Huston, the film director, had a saying about making a film. 90% of it is casting the right person. The same thing as those hires. 90% of it is hiring the right people, and I think we've all suffered. And I'm guilty where they tell you hire slow and fire fast, but the fact of reality is we meet somebody, we like him, we've got a need, and we hire too fast. And then when we know it's not working out, well, I don't want to deal with it. They've got this family, give them another chance, from a different role, another project, and we fire too slow. And coming to grips to understand, that can happen. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, that it can affect some relationships with the people you like and respect. And even doing it the best way you can, and look in the eye and being upfront, it doesn't mean it doesn't hurt both of you.
Yeah. Well, where do you see the future of your business going?
For us, one of the things, first of all, we love technology, and but technology is not what we live and die on. We used to be, and we look at. We've diversified our base because, unfortunately, a lot of the technology projects we work on, the funding is not as consistent as we like. So, we've diversified some other things. We've created a services arm, which we go ahead and we run currently, the Air Force's and Navy's medical modeling simulation centers around the world, which gives us a chance to use not just our products in there, but other people's products to hopefully learn from that. We looked at, where, as we've now gone after work, we were just pure developers, software engineers and artists. All right, well then we said, okay, we've developed it, now let's go ahead and train people how to use ours and others. Well, What else is there? Well, there's the front-end analysis where you work in the, where's the problem up front? You think about instructional designs and some of the people up front developing that, writing out the scenarios, doing how do we assess that? So we started diversifying into that. And so we could provide a turnkey approach. And then we realized the toughest part for us in modeling simulation is getting our subject matter expert. We have built, you mentioned, finding somebody, who's been a combat medic, who's served in there. We've worked with special forces. We work with NATO, hazmat teams. We go down the line. Quite a bit we've done in the medical field is we are only good as our subject matter experts. And so we opened an office a year and a half ago in Huntsville, and to go after a large aviation community up there to go after aviation, we started hiring pilots. So we would have them internally. So as we go after our work now for us, is we want to come in, we've got the turnkey approach. We've got our subject matter experts, and so we've got some great men and women who've served our country, who work in that role, and we're fortunate right now. Over a majority of our team are former veterans, men and women who've served our country.
Man, that is incredible. That's incredible. Well, I want to thank you for coming, sharing your story, and just being so open about your failures and.
There's much more we could go on. We don't want to take up too much time.
I don't think we have enough time here, Waymon. I don't think we have enough time.
Josh, I got to tell you, it's good. You're letting me off easy. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm running out of,
There's no Q&A on that.
Yeah. But thanks for coming on the show and sharing your story with your fellow Orlando entrepreneurs, the people out there in the audience listening in. For people who are listening in, who are entrepreneurs, who are gamers, who are visionaries, who have this dream and vision, how could they learn more about you, about your company?
I'll tell you, obviously, ECSORL is our website, and if you go through there, you can find me. Please feel free to reach out. I've been fortunate enough to if you're an entrepreneur and you're looking to go ahead and do it, to start a company, where I really feel called and where I add value, I believe, is those second stage companies. I know that I'm fortunate to be on the board for GrowFL, which works with second stage companies, 10 employees, million revenue to 100. And while those are only 8% of the firms in Florida, those are 34% of the hires are in those firms growing. And those firms, are you're in no man's land. You're too big to be small, too small to be big. I've gone through that, gone and down and back through it again. And so there's a value that I feel that I'd be happy to share with them. I feel that we have that responsibility to pay it forward. I think there's a great entrepreneurial ecosystem in Florida. I appreciate Josh what you're doing to bring that to light, and some of the people you've had and going through, and what David is there. And I want to just continue to grow.
Cool. Well, in the show notes, we'll add the link for GrowFL, and we'll add the links to your business and how people could connect with you and your group. And man, just thank you for coming on the show. It's been really fun conversation. We had a lot of laughs, and I just want to say thank you.
Hey, listen, thank you again. And by the way, I have no problem as far as I'm laughing at these, and I would hope somebody would learn with it. We can laugh now. At the time, I can tell you there was a lot of tears.
Yeah. And for those listening in to the show, thanks for being a part of Orlando Entrepreneurs, for listening in and for being a part of the conversation, and not just letting it go where you listen to this, but please engage with this content with our guests and with the community. Help us lift it up together. We're all here to build our ideas and to build our vision and to help make an impact in this world. So thank you for listening into this Orlando Entrepreneur Show. We'll talk with you guys on the next episode. Goodbye, everyone. See you later, Mr. Waymon.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening in on today's episode. If you would like to be a guest on the show or start a conversation with me, Josh, your host, send me an email to josh@orlandoentrepreneurs.org. You can also find out more information on Orlando's entrepreneurial ecosystem, discover resources to help you start and grow your business, and subscribe to future shows by visiting www.orlandoentrepreneurs.org.